I'm Nicole, and I tell our student stories here at Penn Foster. And this is Nicole Gonzalez. She is a vet tech graduate. And you submitted a Graduate of the Year application. We're really impressed by it. And I don't know if you figured it out at this point, but you are a finalist. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for submitting your application. Your story is really fantastic. It resonated with a lot of us. And so I'm just going to jump in here. So you said that you're the first person in your family to graduate from college. So first off, congratulations on that. That's a really, really big deal. So how does that feel?
It's definitely crazy. I didn't go to college right out of high school like my original plan always was. But then when I actually got back into school, you have that initial scare of like, to get back into it is scary, after, in my case, was 4 years. But going through the program, meeting a lot of people, a lot of really great people that were helpful or that were in my situation, or some who had been out of school for 20 plus years were even doing it. And even for them, to hear that they're like, oh, I'm the first person in my family as well to like pursue a college degree or to, graduate. And it's really undescribable in a sense, because it's just definitely, as an adult, going to school, that's something that you have to do yourself. You don't, like, it's not required of you to go. And so it's something that's strictly for yourself. And I know for myself as a parent, it's difficult to like actually do things for yourself when it's not all about the kids or your spouse or anybody. And so it was definitely a big accomplishment for me to know that I finished school, much less to be the first to finish, and it's just something that I will be able to carry with me forever, because that was something that was always a personal goal of mine, was to finish, and much less to be the first, and I can't really explain how amazing it really is.
I definitely understand, especially as a mom. I mean, just being a mom in and of itself is really difficult. It's awesome, but it can be really challenging at times. And so to balance work and your kids and then school on top of it, that's really tough. And you mentioned in your application, you finished right around the time your second daughter was born. What was that like?
Oh, that was hard. That was definitely not planned. When I started the program, we just had the one and she was a year old, and it's definitely made it hard, and I know, like, just staying up late nights and probably later than I should have, at times. But in the end, for me, it's like through the program, I really had to tell myself that this is the hard part. This is going to be one of the challenging parts, that though I want to spend every moment that I can with them while they're this little, because you only get this chance once, this time, I knew in the end that it was really going to be worth it, because they were going to see that I did that. Kind of my other goal I had by doing it was by telling my kids, that if you put your mind to it enough and it's something that you really want, it can be done no matter how hard it is. And there's going to be plenty of moments, for like myself included, where you're like, oh, I don't think I can do this. Is this really what I want? But in the end, I'm happy that I stuck with it, and it's going to give my kids something to look back on and to kind of, I hope, inspire them to do the same, no matter what it is that they would want to do.
I definitely think that's true. And I mean, you deserve the biggest pat on the back for that. There are a lot of studies out there that show, parents who complete degree programs or just have, some other level of education, it does impact their futures, not just financially, but it does also, it shows that a lot of children then go on to pursue higher education themselves if they have an example for them. So it definitely, it's something you should be really proud of. And it's something that I'm sure your daughters will be proud of too. So speaking of being a mom and trying to balance all of that, what helped you get through that? Like, do you have any tips or tricks or just, like mindful suggestions on how to juggle all of it?
The biggest factor to being able to do all that was definitely my husband. I'm very lucky because he's always been there, it's a juggling act, like we get up in the morning, I take the kids to school and I work, and then he would pick them up, make dinner, and I come home and we're juggling again. And so the biggest thing for me was the support system that I had in order to do that, and even though it wasn't always easy, either for myself or for him, he was always there to tell me, whatever he could do to make it easier, or vice versa. It's definitely a partnership in that sense. And I couldn't have asked for a better partner. The other thing that I really had to get myself to do was, in this instance, when you work, like myself, I work full time, that's 40 plus hours a week. And I, still have my kids, I want to spend that little time that before they have to go to bed and things like that. The biggest thing was making sure not to just constantly work and school, but to actually find time not only for my family, but for myself. It's definitely not always easy to do that, but there'd be times where it's like I'm on my lunch hour at work and I'm like, oh, I should be doing something for school. But then there's those days where you're like, no, I just have to sit and I just need to not think about anything for a minute. And it's like, I'll get right back to it, but for now, I feel like the biggest struggle that people have when doing these kind of things is that they don't take that moment to just relax, for even a few minutes. And then it's difficult because they feel guilty when they don't. But then when also they're not doing schoolwork. So it can be difficult in that sense to kind of balance that juggling act. But I think that that's the most important thing, is to always try to find some time, even if it means, okay, today I'm not going to do any schoolwork, or today I'm not going to do my laundry or anything, in the house. It's really important to have that mental mindset that you're caring for yourself. In this particular field that I'm in, in the vet field, burnout is so big, and it's difficult when you add another factor to that, such as school or your family. It's really important to take that time for yourself.
Definitely. I think that that's such an important aspect that sometimes people don't talk about. I think, we hear so much about, okay, well, you're a mom and you're in school and you're working, and, there's always that question of how do you juggle it? Like, how do you do it all? But I think it's so important to note that you do have to kind of budget that time personally for yourself. A lot of times making a schedule helps in terms of organizing, when you're doing your schoolwork, when, around your work hours and, your family obligations. But I think sometimes when people are making those schedules, they kind of forget to factor in that personal time. And if you don't do that, you're not as likely to do well at all those other things that you really need to do. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you really can't take care of anyone or anything else either. So I'm really glad you pointed that out, because I think sometimes everybody just looks at, the main points and the surface stuff, and they kind of forget about the internal care that you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely feel like that was a big factor. And I struggled with that even myself for a really long time. But after a while, because if you just get into the program and you just cram and just I have to get everything done all at once. And you're just by the time you get to a certain point, you're just going to hit a hard wall, and it's just, you're going to be stuck there. A lot of burnout is so real in so many aspects of life. And so it's definitely important, to always have that time, even if it's just a few minutes to just sit and do absolutely nothing. If that's what it takes for you, then that can really go a long way. I think that's a big thing that people often, like you said, they forget to kind of factor that part in.
Yeah. And the laundry will be there later on. Going anywhere.
Yep.
As I know very, very well. Yeah, sometimes I do that too. I remember when I have a daughter, she's 10, and I remember when I was in like my birthing classes and stuff, and I remember like the coach said, like you mentioned, you only get this like limited amount of time with them, especially when they're little. And she said, forget about the dusting, forget about the laundry, forget about all that stuff. Like really like relish that time, enjoy it, take care of the things you really, really need to take care of, because that other stuff is always going to be there. It's not going anywhere. So, it's really good to prioritize. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume that that's probably one of the hardest aspects of the program in terms of just trying to balance everything. But, could you tell people a little bit more about the vet tech program and what you enjoyed about it?
I enjoyed the vet tech program so much. And I will say that I hadn't always planned to work in the vet field. It was something that I kind of discovered later. And I was told right from the get-go that this program is the hardest program they have to offer at that time when I started. And it certainly is. I can't speak for the other programs. I don't know how difficult they are, but I know this one certainly, it will give you a run for your money. It's got its challenges. I personally really enjoyed it. My most favorite thing, and I know everybody is terrified of these externships because it means you have to go out and kind of like learn the hands-on aspect. And that can be scary, much less to kind of, I guess, maybe put yourself out there and really show that you are learning for the first time. And that can be difficult because not everywhere you go, or more often than not, most places, they're not accepting when you don't know what you're doing. You have to learn. And that's kind of the whole point of the program. You're learning. And that, and those who are involved might know it, but it's not as forgiving everywhere you go. But I will say that the program with the externships and stuff was my favorite part, because I actually met a lot of great people, especially on my second externship. I did one of the fast track programs in Idaho with Susan Curtis, and the girls that I went with, we all still talk. We have like a little group chat, like from all kinds of different backgrounds, different ages, everything, that you can imagine. And I have never had a greater group of friends, that understand what I enjoy, or like we'll send case things to each other, or just pictures, things that we would appreciate because we all know what it means. So, we're getting it, or we can ask questions. And it was the biggest help during that, because like if we were on skills and we're like, hey, how do we do this? Or what'd you do for this? Things like that. It was just such a big stress reliever to have that kind of in the back of your mind, that you had people that were there to help you. And then when it came time for all of us to actually sit and take the VT&E, we were each rooting for each other. I think only one person has to take it now, but out of the 8 of us, all 7 have passed on their first try.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it really was incredible. Like I think that the program ultimately for me has also really helped bring out like some of my own self-confidence, to know that I could do it. Like I said, as an adult, you have to decide. It has to be a personal choice if you really want to pursue it and go to college, and, it's not required. So that's a big goal in itself. And I think that a lot of people, if they finish the program and they just kind of persevere and keep going, that it will definitely be a great accomplishment. And I know I personally was pretty fulfilled by it. I learned so much. And even at work now, there's things that I learned from the program, directly from the program, that I have been able to kind of go back to and reference. And then I have my coworkers that are like, how do you know how to do that? Or why do you know that? Or why is it that we do it this way? And for me, it's like, well, that's what I learned. That's a part of what I was supposed to learn. And I'm grateful for it every day, because there's been a lot of instances where I can explain something to somebody who's learning in the vet field as well. And I actually understand what they're trying to go through, trying to process. And so for me, the program was just definitely, it's just a big help. And I don't regret it for a minute. I really enjoyed it. And it was a big challenge for sure. But, once I kind of got it in my head, I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get through the program. I'm going to, graduate, everything. There was no greater accomplishment for me at that time. So
I think those are two really great points that you hit. I think sometimes people think because it's an online school, you don't necessarily build those same connections that you would in a traditional brick and mortar school. And yet, perfect example, and just showed us how, you can still do that. And it sounds like that provided you like an additional support system beyond the one you already had at home, and in kind of like your little bubble, you were able to branch out and, even rely on that now, a year later.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a huge help, and I definitely think that if the biggest thing with the program is to give it time. You have to develop your own way of doing everything. You can't, like I said, you don't want to cram everything all at once, especially someone like myself who, when I started the program, I didn't have any prior experience in the field. So I didn't know for a long time exactly what it was that I was really learning. And then when I got onto the externship sites and I was having to actually put those things I learned to use and hands-on, then I was able to fully understand it. And then, of course, by working in the field, it only furthered my education. But, the program itself has just helped me immensely as far as being able to do my job and to also, like I said, to help those who are either considering the program, who maybe are not really wanting to do school, but they want to learn how to do their job better, to train people. I mean, it's definitely been, invaluable to my career. And, for those who I'm trying to help teach, who are going to also be in the future of veterinary medicine.
That's also great that you're able to pass that knowledge down to, a lot of times too, people think, okay, well, it's an online school, so how applicable is everything? Because, you're in front of a computer screen, you're not, necessarily doing it, but those externships do provide that hands-on experience. And it sounds like, your lessons have gone beyond, in a sense, just you. They're kind of going on to other people too, in these ways.
Yeah.
And as a pet owner, thank you, because having great care is really important. We had a little health scare with one of our dogs earlier this year, and I was a train wreck, to be totally honest. And they're like other babies. And it really, having good staff, beyond just, the doctor, because honestly, it's the vet techs who you kind of deal with, where it's kind of like in, human medicine, where you're dealing with, nurses or PAs a little bit more than the actual physician. And so having people who are well-versed and knowledgeable and hands-on and who have a great bedside manner really makes all the difference in any sort of experience that you have like that. So, anytime that can then be spread on to other people, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Like I remember there was a key point in the program, and I truthfully cannot tell you where it is, but there was a point where client education in particular was hit on in the program. I had to really learn about it. And I also watched some webinars, where we talked about it, like you said, bedside manner and everything like that. And after that point, I would go to work and I'd have to explain things to people and all that, like it's definitely been one of my favorite aspects of the field is to be able to educate clients and to further their knowledge of exactly what it is that might be going on with their pet, or why the doctor might suggest this, or just general knowledge, like as if we went to the doctors, we need to know certain things when we're going and doing things. And so I think that it's invaluable to have that, for clients, to be able to learn what it is that you're trying to explain, or, like education is the biggest factor. And you still get clients that are like, I was never told that. I've been coming here for years. And it's not that maybe they didn't want to teach it. I feel like a big part of the thing is too, is that maybe those explaining it, or, they just didn't know either.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of factors to it. And so I think that as far as the program goes, there's certain things that it's like, I just learned, even just how to talk to clients, how to explain things to them, or, kind of put it in layman terms. It just things like that. That's definitely something that I didn't expect going into the program that I would learn, and that I would carry that with me, and I would use it every single day.
I think that's so important to hear from a client perspective, just because I know when you go in, it's very empowering to have somebody give you those tools that, okay, this isn't my job. This isn't something I'm supposed to know, but it's great that like I can take this home and not have to worry or go down the rabbit hole of the internet, find 900 things, 899 of which are wrong, and not know how to parse through that. So I personally did not know that really about that aspect of the program. I didn't really myself know that they went over that type of material. And I think that's really nice to hear, because I think it's not just for you, it's for the benefit of the clients, of the pets. I also saw that you took the veterinary CPR program, and you're one of only 2 techs who have that in your practice.
I'm actually the only one. There is one other certified technician there at my clinic, that I am the only one who is through the Recover program CPR certified. And so in doing so, I have been able to help to kind of explain or to teach, like our technicians or the assistants who may not know what to do in a crisis situation when something like that happens. And I've been able to go through and just kind of explain, okay, this is what you need to do. This is A, B, and C, the steps you need to take, as well as recommend the Recover program to them, and I explained to everybody, I'm advanced CPR certified as well. Now, the clinic that I work at is not set up to handle those kind of cases. However, in my mind, there's nothing wrong with learning, like I will learn something new every day, and I'm happy to do that. And so it's just something to kind of put in my checklist, my box of things that I have, or that I appreciate having, because it could come down to the line where, okay, I have to know it, and somewhere in the back of my head, it's there. It will come out when I need it. And it's never a bad thing to have, more knowledge in something.
I was just going to say, even if you don't use it, it's there, and, it's not doing anything bad. And that is actually something, again, as a pet parent, that I always wonder about. What do I do if one of them stops breathing? Like, how do I know? There's like animal CPR, but I have no idea how to do that. And now, the place I go, does anybody there know how to do it? So that's definitely something I'm going to inquire about. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely been a big thing, because I just currently work at a general practice where we can go weeks without seeing a true emergency. And the next thing you know, we see 3 or 4 in one day. And at those times, it can be extremely overwhelming, and your brain just kind of will sometimes just want to just stop. And in those moments, I've really advocated to people, just slow down and yet speed up. Like, slow your brain down to process what you need to do, but then your hands and your body will actually start doing what they need to do at a certain pace. And I tell the same thing to like some technicians that I've trained, like in surgery or like anesthesia, that itself can be scary, to do. Anesthetics are a whole nother thing. You have to be trained to know how to do that. And in that sense, the patient's life is in your and the doctor's hands. And so that alone can be a scary task. And so it's the same concept when it comes to these emergency cases. The thing that I found the most valuable about the program was in cases where they've brought a dog that's in distress coming back, I don't have to wait for the doctor to come out to know what to do, to get those things initiated and to get them started. And so it's been a great thing to have, and same thing when I went through the program and I was in my externship, there was a certain skill where we had to demonstrate how to do CPR. And during that time, I had a few people came up to me and they were like, hey, while you're doing this, can you explain it to me so that I might know what to do, or I can at least know like the algorithm of it, And so it's definitely been, the program has been able to not only help me or to have me demonstrate that I know what to do, but to also help others who may just want to know, they don't want to be kind of caught off guard in the future if they will really need to actually utilize those strengths, because it's like, well, what if the one person that knows how to do it is not there that day? They're going to have to know.
Yeah. And I think that that's, just another thing that maybe sometimes people don't necessarily consider is that, in a sense, it does take a certain mindset, because it's not, you do have these high pressure situations, and in some cases, not everybody is cut out. I can tell you right now, I'm the type of person that I would just go into a sheer panic. Like, I could not do your job in a million years. There's no way. I would just panic and freak out. So I think it's really great to note that, you have to slow your brain down. So that way, you get your body and your mind all aligned. And that's another really great point. What do you do if the person who knows how to do something isn't there? Or, those minutes can mean everything until the doctor comes out. So if somebody has that knowledge and is well prepared, it's all the better for everybody involved.
Yeah. And I never would have even heard or found this program without the school, and like I tell people, I'm like, the Recover program is dedicated strictly to animals, to learn and to do what you would need to do in that case, or to also explain to an owner what to do if they're getting ready to rush over, to the clinic to have their pet taken care of because their pet is either choking or they're coding or something. And, it's just one of those things where I took the time to do that during the program. And I'm like, it's been amazing to have that, like I would never consider anything that I took the time to learn more of or to go more in depth for, such as the CPR, a waste of time. I would never consider it that, because it's just been, like I said, I may not need it every day, but I have it. And I would like to think that in those times it has made a difference. I've been able to actually put those skills to use and make a difference, for somebody.
Yeah. Having those skills, then, would you say you feel more confident going into work every day, knowing that, okay, I may not need to use this, but it's there if I have to?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know like another quick example was in the first externship, there's a skill that requires you to pass an orogastric tube down a dog's esophagus. And I honestly can say I didn't know how to do it before that. I didn't need to use it for like a good 2 years after I learned how to do it. And then one day we had a dog in an emergency surgery who had bloat. So his stomach was twisted on itself. That is life-threatening. And he's about 100 pounds. And so during the surgery, I was required to pass this same giant tube down his throat. And I realized in that moment that because I learned it in school, I was able to confidently do that. And I realized afterwards that I was one of the only ones that knew how to do that. I had just happened to be in the surgery that day. And so it's one of those things where you don't even realize that you have to kind of shut down at times your emotions, the emotional process of you, and rationalize what you're having to do. And I definitely can say that by going through the program at Penn Foster, that it's taught me a lot of like self-confidence, like I'm able to do these things. And I always can tell myself, I learned how to do this. I can do this. If it happens, I'll know what to do. And if I don't, or if I have a moment of, hey, I don't really know, or I feel like I need a little help, I'm more than okay to say, hey, I need a little bit of help here. There's nothing wrong with not knowing either. There's always going to be days where you're like, hey, I'm just having an off day and I can't do this today or or like when we do our blood draws, everybody has that day where they're like, I can't hit this vein. And I don't know why. It's right there. But, that's definitely something that the program, I feel like, in my opinion, with everybody that's going through it and learning and meeting people, making friends, we're all in that same boat. Nobody is better than anyone, or another. And it's definitely been a big eye opener to know that it's like, hey, we're all in this together. We can all do this. And it's okay if we need help every now and again.
That's so wonderful to hear. That's about it that I have. I would like to ask you two more quick questions. One, what would you say to somebody, or what would you recommend for somebody who is kind of on the fence about going back to school or just starting school for the first time? If they're not really sure, especially with an online program like Penn Foster, what kind of advice would you give them?
The biggest thing that I would say, if people are deciding if they want to go back to school, I know that it's scary. It's especially scary, like if you've been out of school for a while and you're like, oh, I wasn't that good at school, or because I do see that all the time, where on like the Facebook pages of students who are like constantly doubting themselves, or they're in a certain course that's kind of testing their bounds. And so it's definitely the biggest thing I would say is to just give yourself a little bit of time, keep going, don't stop, like it might be hard at that moment, but in the end, it will all be worth it. When you get through a certain part, because there's going to be a part in each section of the program where you're like, this is hard. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to make it through, how I'm going to retain all this. And I know that that's challenging, but really you will get through it, and if there's ever a moment where you feel like, I really don't know if I can do this, the biggest thing I would say is to, like I said earlier, take the time out, just focus on yourself, kind of regroup your mind a little bit. And if it means stepping away from schoolwork for a day or so, then there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to feel guilty about as far as that goes. And then that way you can kind of freshen your mind back up, get back into it, feeling a little bit better. And the other thing I really enjoyed about working with Penn Foster was there was always somebody there to ask for help, whether it be other students or the faculty members or the directors, there's always somebody there. And it's never a problem, it's never going to be an issue that if you need to ask for help, or if you just really need a little simple advice on something, feel like you can reach out. And if it's not to the school directly, there are so many other students who have gone through the program who know exactly what you're going through right at that moment. And for those who are not sure if they have what it takes, I always tell people, what you choose to do in your life does not affect others in the long run. It's solely what you want to do. And I also know that not everybody's going to be supportive. I got lucky and I had a really great family dynamic. My husband was supportive. I had friends, my coworkers, but I would be lying if I said that during the program, I didn't have moments, where I thought, okay, is this worth it? Should I do it? But in the end, it was a personal thing for me. And I think that if you stick your mind to it enough and you kind of have that personal goal, to achieve this, it's going to be worth it, And I personally feel like having gone through the program, it's definitely built my self-confidence up more than I can say, like I know how to do my job. I can help others. I can train. I can confidently explain to somebody or a client, what may be wrong with their pet or what the doctor may suggest or whatever the question is. I can 99% of the time, be confident enough to do that, to answer their questions or to do what I need to do in order to advocate for my clients and my patients. So I definitely think that it's a hard program. I will give them that, but it is so worth it. And I personally feel like I don't regret doing this program at all.
That's so awesome to hear, especially, hard work really does pay off, but it's great to know that it pays off, not just, oh, great, I finished, but that, it's still being applied, all those skills that you learned and that support, that it's all still in place. So based on that, in your last statement, how does it feel to know you are a graduate of the Year Finalist?
It's definitely crazy. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, because for me personally, I'm always kind of like, okay, I did this. Now what do I do next? Where do I go from here? Because it's one of those things, it's a flaw as well as a good trait of mine where I'm like, okay, for me personally, I need more, I need to pursue more. And to be a finalist, in my mind, it's just jaw-dropping, because I kind of went from just one day where I decided, I really would like to do this program. I think I'd be really good at it. I once had in my mind that I was going to go into the human medical field. And now I'm kind of like, I have no desire to do that. I applaud those that do it, especially in today's world, with everything going on, it's not easy. But I definitely feel like I am much farther, mentally and emotionally and physically than I was when I started. And I owe a lot of that to the program and to those who helped me along the way, my family and my friends and the faculty and everything. And I wouldn't be here, somehow a graduate of the Year Finalist, without all of that. So it's definitely, I really appreciate it.
Well, we're really proud of you, and you should definitely be proud of yourself.
Thank you.